Made in America. Made in America. What's up, people? This is Uncommon Ground Conversations. We're about to get some crazy shit going on. I'm just kidding. But today I wanted to talk to a gentleman, a friend of mine. Gentleman sounds like a sexual thing. Just a friend of mine who is a gentleman, who wants to talk, or I wanted to talk with him about Islam. I wanted to learn a little bit more, try to get a sense of what Islam in the 21st century looks like. And I grew up Christian, so I don't necessarily know enough about Islam to be comfortable with talking about it all the time. I know there's a lot of divisions, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of cultural influence, a lot of, the nation that you're a part of influences how Islam sort of plays itself out in your life. So, anywho, so today I'm going to be talking with a friend of mine, who is Muslim, and asking him a bunch of questions about Islam. He'll be coming in the next few minutes, and until then, I don't know, we'll just hang out. You guys can ask me whatever questions you want. If you have any questions, sir. Samila. Yeah, so you didn't catch it. We're going to be talking about Islam today with a friend of mine who's from the UK, who is Muslim, as far as I know. I mean, not as far as I know, like he definitely is. And trying to get an uncommon conversation out of it. The series is Uncommon Conversations, so the idea is kind of obvious, just to try to really explore ideas and really, ideally, have some sort of new thing to say on the subject of whatever it is we're talking about. I don't like repeating the same old points everyone else has made. I don't like beating the same point into the ground unless you have to. Like, I talk to a lot of people about the same political issues over and over and over again, so in that sense I do it. But in terms of having an actual conversation with somebody and not having to go through a policy necessarily, I prefer to try to take the conversation into a new area, or try to get away from the topics that people want to avoid. We don't want to beat that dead horse, and people do. Dude, the amount of people that I talk to specifically about Trump, that had the same exact mindless opinion, like, not to be mean, but just like, when you've heard the 20th person in a row make the exact same insight into Trump, it's kind of like, why are you even talking right now? So many people don't have new opinions or their own thoughts that they bring to the table. They just kind of learn what they have to say from other people. And with Trump in particular, because he was such a divisive figure, it was either a really interesting conversation about Trump or the most mind-numbingly stupid conversation about Trump ever. Yeah, Trump's mean tweets ruined my life too. I don't know how we're gonna survive here. Hey, my boy Ray is here. Hello, sir. It's good to talk. Good to see you. I think you have to. There we go. Hello, sir.
Hey, my brother. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. This is the first time we've talked face to face, not through Messenger, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Likewise, it's nice to meet you. I watch your YouTube videos, so it's nice to actually be speaking to you now.
Yeah, it's cool. Do you like them? Do you like the YouTube stuff?
I need to say how impressed I am with you. The fact that you can just sit in your car, turn on the camera, and talk for 15 minutes straight. That's actually really, that's a skill. So, I really, I'm impressed by that. And, I like your content. I think you're obviously someone with a lot of opinions, like me, maybe perhaps a seeker of truth. someone who
Mm-hmm.
likes to
Mm-hmm.
explore, someone who likes to learn and explore different ideas. So it's and obviously I've known you through Elliot Hollis's group for some time, so it's nice to be talking to you, and hopefully we're going to bounce some ideas off of each other today.
Yeah, yeah, hopefully. Yeah, man. Me with opinions? Oh, that doesn't sound accurate at all. um, yeah, I'm Mr. Opinions, and honestly, like years and years and years of having things in my head just that I'm like I want to talk about or that I'm exploring just on my own. When I actually got to sit down and start trying to explain them and just blurting the ideas out, it was a little bit like a relief
Mhm.
because uh, around 2018, I had a handful of insights that were unique to me, like things I could point out that I didn't see anyone else talking about. And so that
Mhm.
put a little bit of pressure on me because personality wise, I don't want to be doing this. I'd rather
Mhm.
be working some job where I could be by myself, listening to podcasts and audiobooks and doing my thing. But um,
Mhm.
after enough years of having these issues, I needed to get off my chest. It's actually been kind of nice. So uh,
And how long
I
you
don't
have you
even
been
think
doing
of
it
it
for?
as a skill. I think of it as like, oh, I'm just getting on there and ranting. So.
Well, good on you, because obviously you care enough about um, the truth that you have in the world around you that you want to voice your opinions on it and bring something to the kind of intellectual realm of ideas and discussions. So, I appreciate you didn't choose the easy route of just watching other people's podcasts from your house. Instead, you decided to get in on the discussion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep, yep. That's what you got to do when you feel like that's the right move, and I did. So I brought you on because I wanted to talk to you about Islam a little bit, but
Sure.
I guess we'll tie it in with a slightly different question real quick while we have time. What was your upbringing like? Where were you born, and what has your experience? I'm assuming you grew up Muslim or grew up.
Yeah,
Uh, what was that like growing up? Where you grew up, and what did it mean
yeah,
to you and at those ages? You know,
yeah.
10,
Sure,
10 to 18.
sure. So first, you asked about where I grew up. Can you tell at all from the accent?
I don't know if it's I don't know where in the UK. It might be Northern Ireland, but
It's not Ireland. It's not Ireland. It's Scotland. I'm in Scotland.
Scotland. Okay, the Scottish
Yeah,
and the Irish accents I have a hard time parsing
yeah,
out.
yeah.
I can distinguish them from the other from Wales and from
Sure.
most of England. But yeah, yeah. What made you go
So
to Scotland? Or
born and raised. Born and
oh,
raised.
born and
Yeah.
raised. Okay.
So I'm mixed race. My mother's side is entirely Scottish, and that's like my lineage on one side. But on my father's side, well, first, both my parents grew up here in Scotland, in Glasgow. But on my father's side, his parents were from India, Pakistan, and prior to that, they were from Iran. So it was like a kind of mix of different kind of Muslim countries, Iran, Pakistan, and like certain parts of India. Uh, my parents actually eloped to get married because at that time there wasn't, there was kind of more Pakistanis coming into the country, but um, the kind of combination of those two cultures hadn't so much happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
So there was kind of some stigma against that at the time. But yeah, growing up, I got to say I lived in a fairly liberal household. Uh, I've always had when I was younger, I saw a psychologist for some period because growing up, I grew up in an area where there was not really any representation of the Asian community. And for that, at periods, I was ostracized.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of that, it kind of brought me onto a path of caring about other people. I think naturally I'm quite empathetic. And
Mm-hmm.
like I wasn't particularly spiritual at the time. I wasn't particularly religious at the time. But then, as I kind of went through high school and you try finding your identity, I always had a keenness for self-betterment and personal development because I kind of learned the impact that thoughts actually have on the rest of your life. The fact of if you're thinking positive thoughts, you're more likely of having positive experiences, and for example, on your YouTube videos, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just, whether I agree with you or not, as far as I'm concerned, you're just a guy who cares about truth and is kind of on that journey. But let's say, I was a hater and I were to just leave disgusting messages on your comments saying how much I hate you. You as a guy with honest intentions, I don't know how residual you are, but like, to some people that could be enough to actually make them stop. Whereas if I were to give you positive encouragement, it could really be enough to make you want to continue and kind of keep on your mission. So, through having the right role models, I kind of started to understand the power of my words and of my thoughts. And I kind of became more interested in personal development and confidence. And eventually these paths kind of led me to spirituality and like meditations and stuff. And although like my household wasn't particularly Islamic, I had some more extended Islamic family. And I always did identify as a Muslim, whilst not really knowing much about it or practicing it so much. But I suppose in my kind of quest of self-improvement, personal development, it kind of gave me an inclination to want to study why we're here and stuff. And I think around 2016, I started trying to rationalize everything I had learned from all of these books. Like I'm a big reader. I don't know if you can see some of my books over there. But I started trying to rationalize
that. I like
the
helmet, by the way, too.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks, man. I like it too. But I started to try and rationalize that with kind of more spiritual matters. And the more I did so, and because I kind of already was starting to understand things about like society, things about history repeating itself, and even though the times change, the nature of humans stays the same, and about like morality, and is morality objective or is it subjective, or are things objectively right, or is everything just subjective? And from all of my kind of studying and reading, and then bringing that to Islam, I just found them to be so compatible that was kind of where the journey started. And even though I would have called myself a Muslim before that, it was only cultural, and I say around 2016, 2017, the journey of spirituality really began.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really cool. I'll give a quick 45-second rundown because my life reflects that a little bit. My grandpa is a pastor from the Christian Baptist, Southern Baptist Christian denomination. And I grew up in the church, and I grew up as a true believer 100%. I didn't have any doubts. I absolutely knew that's what I believed, but it was very much a naive kind of faith, very much a limited kind of faith, and a unsophisticated worldview. There was a lot about the world that what I thought and what I had as sort of like my set of ideas just didn't apply. They couldn't work for it. So around 17, 18, I lost / let go of my faith, and just not because I felt like there wasn't anything there, but because I didn't know which God to believe in. You can have the idea that there's a God, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you were raised under the right religion, you were raised with the right conception of God or whatever. So I had to go on an exploration, and Jordan Peterson's work in particular really helped me reframe the way I could approach sacred value in religious text. Understanding that it's not just rules, but it's a commentary on the ideal way to live as a human being. And that giant revelation really allowed me to have an intellectual comfort with faith. Because until then, yeah, you can have faith, but faith in what and why? You can't just say have faith, because it's in what? You can have faith in everything. You could have faith in the worst things.
Yeah.
So
I'd say, see that thing about the kind of cultural faith, such as my family's been here. It was my great grandfather and my great grandmother who first immigrated here to the UK, and my grandparents were maybe 12, 13, 14 years old at the time, and they had grown up in a religious society, whereas the UK at this point was kind of turning away from the church and was more secular and kind of post-Christian culture at this point. And the for the next generation that were actually born here, when they were to that grandparents' generation, they were used to just being told follow the rules, and it wasn't hard to not follow the rules because the rest of your society is following the rules. But for the generation after that, who were brought up in the West and they saw secular, I don't want to say sex, drugs, and rock and roll. There was a bit of a there's a bit of a split. What's the point in all of these rules? And I was the generation after that, and I'd say I kind of saw the religiosity to a degree kind of impacting people, and I saw some people holding on to it, and I felt there was a certain kind of level of being grounded in people who had it, and I kind of always admired it and appreciated it, and I always saw a value around people who were spiritual. And I think I always thought in the back of my head I'd get there eventually, And just through the will of God, I was able to take the steps. And I'm very glad that I did. And, I always encourage other people to explore the spirituality and, why are you here? I have some students who are doctors, and they tell me towards the end of people's lives, that's a lot of them become religious because there's no more focusing on the next party, there's no more focusing on the next promotion or the next pay rise. Now it's just what's coming next. What is inevitable for all of us is death, and it's the absence of focusing on all of these external things. They're now focusing on something more internal, something more. I suppose in Islam we believe that human beings actually have a innate predisposition to worship God, and if we're not worshiping God, something's missing. And I think people need to face that thing that's missing, because if that thing is missing, you're going to try and fill it with something else. People are going to try and fill it with status, with Instagram likes, with money, with drugs or alcohol. It's never going to fulfill you like that connection with your Creator is.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that point. It's never going to satiate that deepest meaning in your life. And what's interesting, what you talked about, the doctor clients you have, and the old people thinking about God and mortality and everything. I kind of did that at a very young age, in my teens actually, because my grandpa was a pastor. My parents got divorced, and so I was really struggling with accepting myself as half of each of my parents, particularly my dad. I had a hard time absorbing the fact that that man was representative of me in some way, or was tied to me, and also any genetic or any behavioral things that I picked up on from him, which I did. A lot of bad habits I picked up on from him really made me struggle with self-loathing and a lack of self-value. And my grandpa pointed me in the direction of looking to God for something to identify with beyond any of these worldly things, and to understand that that's kind of where my value can go at 15, 16 years old. And that grounded me in very deep things, very deep thinking. I'm very grateful for that. And then I also had a dream where at least my conception of heaven, I went to my conception of heaven where there was this ultimate white mist, and everything was connected and one, and there was no form, and there was no change, and you were just there always. And as perverse as this may seem, the idea of that terrified me. It felt like hell, being in a position where you were non-changing, formless, just there. And that made me have a whiplash effect where I was like, okay, what do I do with my life now? Well, what do I, and I've always known, I'm not academically inclined, but I've always known I'm bright, and I've always known I wanted to do something special and meaningful by my own judgment. From the time I was a kid, I knew I wanted to be involved in things that had meaning, that I said had meaning, not that the world said had meaning. Because there's a lot of things that people value, big and small, sports and certain political views that are largely meaningless to me. So and obviously I'm talking about adult topics and then my perspective as a kid, sort of, but I very much was on my own and kind of saw the world and value on my own terms. I didn't just follow from a young age, because I'm I know I'm not dumb. So if you're not explaining it to me, well, it's probably on you, not on me. That was kind of how I approached the world.
Yeah. I like that massively.
Anywho, and so I've sort of been battling with, what do I do with my life in the deepest, most meaningful possible way for 12 years at this point. And so it was weird to hear that thing about old people kind of facing that. And
it's a blessing that you come to contemplate it at a younger age. I think it's really a blessing that you're contemplating this, and it's something visceral. It's something that's a part of you that needs to be kind of exercised, and for a light to be shone on it. Because if you don't, I've got friends who were, I had a friend who was an atheist his entire life. And then, by the will of God, he kind of transitioned to agnostic for a couple of years, and then he became monotheist. And, he lost his insomnia, he lost his depression, he came off antidepressants. And I'm not that I'm saying people that are depressed need to just, thank God and then the depression goes away. But certainly for him, and I think in many people's lives, there's something which is missing, and that is that connection with your creator. And there's this speaker called Yasmin Mujahid, and she gives this analogy of like, you know, your car needs petrol, but you go to the petrol station, and the petrol is you know, extortionate, but the orange juice is cheap. So instead of putting petrol in your car, you put orange juice in it, and the car breaks down. You know, and it's the same. Like for us to form that connection with God, it takes a level of discipline. There's certain things we're going to need to abstain from, certain distractions, which are only going to cloud our judgment. Which there seems to be a lot of things in society now which is pulling us away from God. But, you know, disciplining ourselves and incorporating these disciplines like fasting, like prayer, worship, mindfulness, charity, good action. It's these things which are going to cultivate that relationship. Just like exercise, like getting in shape. It's not like, it's not necessarily, I don't want to say it's really difficult, but it takes discipline. You need to eat properly. You need to regularly exercise. You know, if you want to become smarter or more knowledgeable, there's disciplines involved in that. You need to put time into learning and reading and talking and discussing. It's the same as spirituality. If you want your spirit to be strong, there's disciplines involved in exercising it, just the same way there's with the mind or the body.
Yeah, what's cool about human beings is we're born with basically almost an open capacity to do almost anything we put our creative ability towards, and that can have good or bad meaning. It could be a good or a bad thing, regardless of what your capacity is. You can put it towards the good or towards the bad. What's unique about when you're talking about discipline, or sorry, I got a little bit sidetracked, but I was going to say what you said made me think of Jocko Willink's phrase, discipline equals freedom. And I believe that is the true, like one of those truisms that goes deep and up as deeply into the world as you want, because we have that potential. And as a young kid, we're not used to, unless you have discipline imposed on you by someone else, you're not used to denying your natural inclinations and wants and instincts and the way you just want to be, like naturally, without thinking about it, without any thought. And that is formless and has all the potential of everything, and you're kind of taken in every direction. And when you engage in a discipline, you're limiting that, and you're saying, I'm going to be this thing as best as I can be for this period of time. And that muscle of just this restriction of other behaviors is what gives you the freedom to choose how you're going to live your life. Because what you're just naturally, the direction you're naturally pointed in by your body or your urges or whatever, is not the ideal way to live your life. And so in the religion, or in the spiritual sense, you have to reject that sinful nature and turn towards something that's more ideal. And that phrase, discipline equals freedom, like it's good for all of life, but when it's applied spiritually, I think it's uniquely powerful, because the bad side of being a car mechanic is kind of whatever, but the bad side of spirituality is as like intense as it gets.
Oh, of course, completely agreed. Completely agree with you. That's a really good analogy.
Thank you. So I wrote down some notes on two questions, sort of. Yep. One's a longer one. The shorter one is, what is your mission with your English with Ray? What got you into it, and what makes you? What are you wanting to do other than just teach people English?
Yeah,
like,
well,
what does it mean?
Sure. So for the last 5 years, my goal was to be a primary school teacher, but with the way the coronavirus unfolded, it just turned out not to be plausible for me. And I kind of had a love for learning languages. And as I said, like, I always had a kind of desire for personal development, self-improvement, and it's something I liked giving to other people. And I wasn't accepted into university to go down that route, but prior to going in, there was this kind of thing eating at the back of me. And it was, you know, we were talking about some certain human urges and things and the way humans are designed. See the information that they teach in schools, I just found it to be, in some aspects, like the antithesis of what a religion religious person should advocate for. There were some ideas, in this kind of secularism and kind of ideas of incorporating that I just didn't feel comfortable talking about it. I volunteered in schools where they spoke about it, and it just, it kind of made me sick. So it was always kind of that eating it. That was like my one doubt. I like being with kids. I like being, like, in my family, got a lot of kids. I like being a kind of role model to kids. I see kind of hope and innocence and something really precious in them. I like teaching. The teacher lifestyle as well. You have the whole summer off and you get paid for having the summer off. There were a lot of things about that lifestyle which were really appealing for me. It seemed like something I'd like. It seemed like something I was good at. It seems like something I'd find fulfillment in. There were a lot of reasons why it was good for me. But I'd spent the last year learning Arabic because obviously Arabic is the language of the Quran, and I wanted to kind of come more in touch with that culture and have a deeper understanding of it. And I guess I was trying to fill a void at that point in my life, and I wanted something to do. But on the website where I was learning Arabic, I was kind of looking at other teachers' profiles, and my degree was marketing. That was my study field. And when I saw all of these other teachers advertising themselves, I thought it was, they had the credentials, they had the experience, but they had a lame webcam, they had poor microphone audio, they didn't have a nice backdrop, they didn't have a nice bio which was optimized and had nice key selling words and stuff. So with that kind of marketing and filmmaking knowledge, which I already had, I just thought I'd have an advantage above all of them. And when I didn't get accepted into university, I kind of knew that this is where I was going to go next. And, by the grace of God, it's just worked out excellently. I've been able to combine my filmmaking. I've been able to combine my love for personal development, encouraging people. I've been able to combine that with my love for teaching. So it's just really come together in a great way. What for the future of it? Of course, I'd like to expand it in whatever way I can. I have ideas for courses. Just now, I've started working as an editor for a YouTuber, and it's created some other networking opportunities. Where I'm going to go exactly next, I don't know. But in Islam, we have this idea of halal and haram. Halal is permissible in the eyes of God, and you can have a halal income or you can have a haram income. Haram income is dealing in things which are unfavorable to God, and then there's things you spend your money on which are halal or haram. And I made a prayer that I want the money that I earn to be halal. I don't want to be working for companies which are pushing agendas or ideas or supporting causes which I find sickening and I don't support. And I want the things that I contribute to. I want, like as I said, I spoke earlier about the power of your words and the power of your thoughts. I believe human beings are powerful. Even I think that feeling of powerlessness is a horrible feeling. I've been there before, and I think people, they get depressed when they feel life is just happening to them, and they get that feeling of powerlessness. I think everyone kind of has a power, and I want to, God willing, invest the power that God has graced me with contributing to good and as well, as opposed to earning a haram income or spending my money in things like haram or engaging in unfavorable, pastimes and such.
I really like that. I really like that conceptual distinction between, the Christian language is serving God or being a servant of Jesus within your thing and not being the thing. Like I just listened to a pastor who is running for office here in California, in the United States. And he said, I'm not a public servant. I'm a servant of Christ. And that he was echoing the same idea. And I believe very much in our life, we can choose to serve God and his ultimate, so like God's will and the ultimate good are kind of, if you want to say that God's will is ultimately good, those are interchangeable. So if you're aligned towards God's will and the ultimate, like good or the ultimate meaning, you'll
I like that a lot.
Have that center. You want to be centered in that, in what you're doing in your life, and not, like you said, serve or find money in non-moral ways, I guess, or ways that don't serve God.
Yeah. I think even you and me, and I know I've felt this, even though I try not to feel this, and maybe you felt it to some degree, is, when you release content and some of it's popular and it's good, and you kind of get a nice feeling of, oh, this got this many likes or something, or this got this many views, and then you have a day you didn't get that many views, and the heart feels kind of sink, like, why not? And there's just that reminder of, well, why are we making content? The thing is, I don't want to just make this content to make myself more famous or to give myself, some kind of, ego boost, because it's a really poisonous way. Ultimately, I need to remind myself that I'm making this content so when I meet God on the other side of life, I can say I lived and I died for your cause, and everything I did it to further your truth and to do things which would be pleasing to you, and not to do things which are just going to be beneficial for me. Because, even as I'm making Islamic content, religious content, and putting out messages, if I'm doing it so I can get likes or if I can get attention from girls or guys or whatever, God's going to see right through that. So it's really important to remind yourself why you're doing this, and if you get 2 likes, so what? If only 2 people are on your live chat, so what? You're not doing it for their validation. You're doing it so when I don't know if you know this about Islam, but we believe in Jesus Christ being the peace be upon him. He's the son of we say Maryam, or you'd say Mary, the Virgin Mother. We believe he's the Messiah. We believe he's a servant of God. So
the Zabur, is that how you pronounce it? The Zabur, that's your guys. Is it Zabur? Is that your guys' word for the Bible? Is that the Islamic word for the Bible?
The Injil.
Okay.
Yeah,
I wrote down the Quran, Injil, the Torah, and
the
Zabur,
Torah,
but I confused the 2 that are not as well known.
Yeah, so there's the Torah, the Injil, and then the Quran. We believe it was progressive. So like when we die and we're going to meet, we call him Nabi Isa Salam, Prophet Jesus, may peace be upon him, or we call him Isa ibn Maryam, Isa the son of Maryam. And just an interesting fact, Maryam, which is Mary, that she's the only woman mentioned in the Quran, and she's considered to be the top of all women. Like, she's the greatest woman. She's like the role model for all women. She's like, if there's a woman you want to be like, it's like her. Like, she's considered the greatest of all women. So when we're taught about these people, about all these prophets, and eventually we're going to be face to face with them, and for them to know who we are and the fact that we lived our life in subservience to Allah, to the God, that's where we want to be. Because if I only did this stuff because I wanted to get likes or to get famous or to get rich, then it's very short-sighted of me. It's a very poor investment of my time here on earth.
Yeah, I totally get that. The thing that you mentioned about Mary, and that's the sort of she's considered the highest ideal of what a woman should be. Without getting into the details of what that actually means, because that will take a while. It's really interesting in our culture, Western culture, almost across the board, that people, and this is sort of my critique of the Christian church, that they don't get this messaging right. That it's not that as a woman, in this case, that being a virgin until you get married and then being a mother to to God, and like being a mother and being a virgin, like saying that is what every woman should do in some sort of you should do this kind of a way, isn't really what it's saying. It's saying that if you want to live the most meaningful and ideal way you can, you would choose to try to be, an excellent mother. And that's the most meaningful thing you can do with your time. That doesn't mean, at any given point, you can't go be an accountant. You know what I mean? To put those on the same plane is just insane to me, that like your career and your family is like at all equal. Or anything about the message of Thagalain? Is that how you pronounce that? How do you pronounce it? Thagalain?
I'm sorry, E042. I don't know what that is.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that is. The message of Thakalain. I'm not sure.
Okay. So I had a question for you on what the 5 pillars of Islam look like in the 21st century in your life. So the profession of faith. We'll start there. Under what context do you profess / sell your faith? And I don't mean sell in the bad way, but
So 5 pillars of Islam, the way I remember it, is there's 2 we do a day, there's 2 we do a year, and there's 1 we do in a lifetime. The 2 we do a day are Shahada and Salah. The 2 we do a year are Zakat, charity, which is an obligatory amount of money we have to give to the poor, which is 2.5% of my income. 2.5% of my income. It doesn't belong to me. Everything I've got, every breath that I breathe is a blessing from God. And the money in my bank account is not like, to talk about, oh, I made that money. It's from God. But God has said that 2.5% of the money in your bank account, it doesn't belong to you. You can party with the other 97.5%, but that 2.5%, that belongs to the poor. So that's an obligation upon us as Muslims. Ramadan, that's the period of fasting, and the one we have to do in our lifetime is to do the Hajj pilgrimage. So you wanted me to start with the Shahada, was that right? The Declaration of Faith?
Yes.
So the Declaration of Faith, this is how someone becomes a Muslim. Now see this word, Islam. So in Arabic, and this is something I've learned through my kind of Arabic studies, most words have a 3-letter root. Some words it's 4, most words are 3 letters, it's 3-letter root. And then the word can take different meanings. So such as, see, salam, Islam, Muslim, they're all next to each other in the dictionary. And it's like that with many words because they're effectively the same word. So salam means peace, Islam is submission, Muslim is a person of peace, and the Islamic greeting is Assalamu alaikum salam, may peace be upon you. And through our kind of life, it's submission to God, and we believe that all of the prophets, we believe they were Muslims, and we don't just mean Muslim in the sense of that was their name or their club. We mean Muslim as in they had submit their will to God. They were servants of God. They had submit and said, God, you're the most powerful, you're the most wise, and my life is dedicated to serving you. And when someone is a Muslim, that is them. It just means they have submit their will to God. We believe someone has submit their will to God, and they have followed the prophet of their time. So, in the time of the Jews, the prophet of their time was Musa alayhi salam, or Moses. In the time of the Christians, it was Christ, Nabi Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam, the Messiah, peace be upon him. And we believe, in this period, like this is the period between, so I don't know if you know this, but Christians and Muslims, we share quite a similar prophecy for the end of times. Like, as in, we believe that there's going to be an Antichrist. We believe that Jesus is going to descend back down to earth to kill the Antichrist. And we believe that the horn is going to blow and the earth is going to be destroyed and Judgment Day is going to come. So, Shahada, Ashhadu la ilaha, I believe that there's no God except from the God. Like that word Allah, it's actually 2 words. It's Al-Ilah, it's the God.
The God.
In fact, yeah, the God. And Allah is actually the name for that the Arab Christians will use, or the Arab Jews.
You're breaking up, sorry.
Hey, bro, you with me?
You're breaking up. I can't. It's just
okay.
buffering. Give it a sec. There you go. You're good. You're back.
Okay, I'm on my data. If it continues, I can switch to Wi-Fi.
Okay. No worries.
So, yeah, the Shahada, like the whole, like something I wanted to talk to you about today was like how Islam kind of came about, how it started, and the whole kind of journey of it. But it's probably going to be a bit tight for time. But like it was at a time where Mecca was like, it was pagan, it was full of idol worshipping. The government controlled the gods. The government told you what gods to worship. And they sold gods in the street. They said, buy this god and you will be rich. Buy this god and you'll have good health. Buy this god and you'll have this. And there was the idea of selling you these idols and these gods, and people seeing these things, these wooden things, and crying, and thinking that this thing is going to help them or save them. But as Muslims, our kind of declaration of faith is that we don't pray to statues, we don't pray to figures, we don't worship man. Worship is exclusively for God. So Ashhadu la ilaha illallah, there is no God except from Allah. Then the second part is what Ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah, and that is, and I testify that the Prophet Muhammad is the messenger of God. He is his messenger for our time these days, for us leading to the end of times.
That's cool. Yeah, I had a Muslim friend that I talked to for like 5 minutes in high school about Islam, and he mentioned the 5 pillars of Islam, and then he mentioned the point that there's a lot of crossover between the Christian faith and the Christian scriptures and texts, and the like
Yeah,
Muslim
man,
perspective on that.
like the
Like
idea of
there's,
what a
there's
man
more
should be,
than you
what
think.
a
It's
woman.
not this entirely
Yeah.
separate thing. It's another
Yeah.
Abrahamic faith.
Yeah, like see the idea of what a man should be, what women should be, how we should be with each other, how you should be with your neighbor, how we should kind of organize our societies. There are historical things that we disagree on, but like a lot of what's right and what's wrong, how you should earn your money, and the kind of things that you should like. There's a lot of crossover in those areas between us.
I will like to say I'm going to say this for the rest of my life because it's funny that Christians are 4 times as charitable as Muslims. I'm just joking, but the tithing, the 10%, I'm going to hang on to that because I think that's a funny joke. It's not
So,
true,
again,
obviously. It doesn't apply to the real world, but the 2.5%, the 10%, I just thought it was, and like giving to the church versus giving
what's
to
the 10%?
poor. So in the Christian faith, we give 10% to the church, and the church, some churches have paid staff. The pastor gets paid and gets a salary out of that. And so after that money, it goes to charity and everything. And sometimes in the Mormon faith and the LDS, Latter-day Saints Church, it's all volunteer work. So all the money goes, except for the very, very people at the top of the religious priestly structure, basically for them. Sorry. Oh yeah, except for the very, very top people that have to travel around the world, they don't pay anybody in their religious organization. And what is it like that with imams and in the Muslim world? And is that the primary priestly figure, I guess, in the Muslim world? That's the word for it, is imam?
Yeah, well, I mean, see in Islam, we don't have a pope. We don't have like a number one leader. I know, like, see the Mormons, they still believe prophets are coming. Like, they actually, I don't know what the guy's name is, David or something. He has a suit and he walks around and he travels around, and they believe this guy is in the same lineage of, all the other prophets.
Mm-hmm.
For us, the prophet who stopped after the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and we believe that there's not going to be any prophets until Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, returns to kill the Antichrist. So they see the highest authority in the Islamic faith is the Quran. Like we say, there are miracles in Islam. There are miracles, but like for example, with Jesus, we believe he brought the dead back to life. I think he cured the blind. He had these miracles. But now in this modern day, we can't see those miracles. We can't go back and look at those miracles apart from for written accounts. And within Islam, there were miracles. One of the biggest ones was the splitting of the moon. Do you know about that one?
No, I do not. I have not heard about it. I like that you mentioned the moon because I do have some questions as it relates to the moon, but you might answer them in what you're about to say. So,
okay, sure. Well, there was a time. So there was kind of like I honestly like lots of time just now. It's just because I have a class in 15 minutes, and honestly, I'd love to talk about this whole thing with you, but I'm going to kind of summarize it to a degree. If you want, you can kind of research it, and then we can do another one of these where we'll go into further depth. But
yeah.
I'll kind of give you a rundown of it just now. But there were 2 periods kind of in the Muslim history. There was the Meccan period and the Medina period. In the Meccan period, this is when Islam was first coming. To be a Muslim was like unfavorable. They had no power. They were being persecuted, attacked, and eventually killed. The first ever martyr of Islam was a woman called Samaya, I believe her name was. Then they moved to a city called Yathrib, which was the second period, and that's kind of 2 periods of Islam. And the Muslims had a lot of enemies, a lot of far more powerful enemies than them. All the other leaders who were all idolaters and pagans. The Muslims' first allies were the Christians. There was a king they met. Sorry, I'm kind of getting sidetracked. I love this story. I love this story. Not but I'm going to stick to the main point about the moon. But anyway, there was a period where they were kind of accusing him and saying, if you're a prophet, do a miracle, do a miracle, do a miracle. And he says, what miracle do you want to see? And they said, if you're a prophet, split the moon in half. And he says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, the merciful and kind, and he makes a prayer to God, and he says, can you show them a miracle by splitting the moon in half? And the moon was actually split in half. And this was something that they thought that he was like a wizard or an illusionist, or he'd performed some kind of black magic. But then they asked other people in the city and other people in the other cities, and they all witnessed this event. And I found out today, because I heard someone talking about it, supposedly there's accounts of kings in other countries who actually witnessed this. There was a king in India at that period who witnessed the moon splitting. But again, like, when I try to tell people about Islam, I don't talk about the splitting of the moon. Because the same way with, like, Jesus, peace be upon him, bringing the dead back to life, we can't show that to people now. We have some, like, kind of references and pieces of evidence, but you can't show it to someone. So the miracle of our prophet, his biggest miracle was the Quran. We believe this is we don't believe that Muhammad, peace be upon him, we do not believe that he authored the Quran. We believe that the Quran was revealed to him from God revealed it to the angel Gabriel. Gabriel revealed it to the Prophet Muhammad, and then it was written down and it was collected into this book which we now have. And this, as Muslims, we consider to be the ultimate authority in our lives, the unchanged, unadulterated Word of God, which is it's a book of guidance. It tells us how we orchestrate our lives, how we live, and what we need to live by in order for there to be order within our societies and for us to live good lives.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that breakdown. I really liked your intro. I checked out, watched a few videos of yours just to refresh, and I really like your intro. So I'd like to talk to you about that, how you do it, or whatever about that later. Just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, sure. Just to let you know, it's 7:48 here. I have a class at 8, so in 12 minutes. But I don't I can pretty much leave at 59 and be at the class for 8 because I'm already at my computer. But yeah, but if you ask me all the questions,
we'll get out of here in like 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, I can stay right up until the end, just to let you know. But I'll answer as much as I can on this occasion. If you want to do another one of these, I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, I absolutely want to do another one of these. This is fascinating, and I really appreciate you coming on. This will be great for me and great for everybody. And this is certainly so. This series is called Uncommon Conversations, and I would definitely say this has been, in the best sense possible, an uncommon conversation so far. There is a book. I don't know the name of it. I'm not really good with names in that sense, but there's a book that Muhammad wrote, I believe, that is beyond the Quran. Is that correct? That he wrote something beyond the Quran? He had, I think it's it's tied to the idea of a political prescription with Islam, at least in certain people that I've come across. But I don't know. Again, I barely know anything. So it's just like references here and there to things that I've heard.
Well, what we believe about him, we have evidence to support, is that he was illiterate, so he was unable to write or to read, which is kind of another one of the miracles about the Quran, because now Arabic is the fourth most spoken language in the world, but it's actually the reference for all of Arabic grammar and Arabic literature to determine whether something is correct, because it's like I can't remember the adjective, don't know the adjective I'm looking for, but it's like a book without mistakes in it. So like
flawless.
Other books, flawless, yeah, there's a good adjective. It's like a flawless book which has been produced, which is kind of one of the miracles about it. But for him to have produced another book, it's again, I'm not a scholar or anything. I'm just a lover of this religion. But I'm sure if he had authored a book, I would have known about it. But to my knowledge, there's absolutely nothing else he produced other than the Quran.
It might be a collection of utterances of him.
I think you mean the hadiths. I think you mean hadith.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is
so
that?
So see, after he died, there was one of the companions went around and asked all of his the other companions. So he asked his wives were still alive, the people that all of the people that knew him. He asked what was he like, and you can actually download an app called Sahih Hadith, which means the correct true hadith. If you want, I can send you a link to it. I think it's on Apple and on Android. And there are thousands. There's on eating, on praying, on manners, on greetings, all of these different subjects. There's how did he act, and the hadiths will be who said it, who reported it. Now, hadith is a whole thing in of itself. We have ways of authenticating how true a hadith is, because he collected hadith for I think 200 or 300 years after his death, and a lot of them were unauthentic because it was my great grandfather knew the prophet and says that he was like this, and this is no longer an authentic source. It still exists, and you can still read it, but it's not like it's not
Consistent with everything else.
yeah, it's not like an authority. It like you can look at it, but it's not an authority on the religion. The ultimate authority is the Quran, and then we take we call his Sunnah, like his actions in his way. We look at the authentic ones. There's a whole study in of itself if you want to go look at these other books, because there's so many of them. But yeah, but like when you start looking into that stuff, it's kind of history, but it's not so much the religion. And I would just say, because it's like unauthenticated and it's not from the source, I'd say if you're going to research it, especially looking at the hadiths that were actually said by the people who knew him, his wives, his companions, for that generation people, and that generation of people produced thousands. In fact, his wife Aisha, when we say the names of any of his companions or his wives, they say, may God be pleased with them. For the Prophet, we have peace be upon them, and may God be pleased with them for the companions and the wives and such. So his wife Aisha, his final wife, may God be pleased with her, she produced, I think, 2,400 or 2,500 hadiths, just talking about her husband in the best of light, and how he was in every circumstance, in every scenario, how he was just like the greatest man ever to have lived, and just how he behaved, like how he put like this the prayer, one of the other 5 pillars of Islam, the act of worship that we do 5 times a day. How did he do it? And just all the intricacies of how this man kind of lived his life. And as Muslims, we believe that he was like the most beloved by God, and that he is like, they say that he was sending this prophet was none other than an act of mercy to mankind. This prophet was sent to mankind as an act of mercy and love from God. So the hadith is a way of which we can kind of learn about how he lived and how he acted, and the documentation is vast. There's a plethora of resources you can go there to learn about how he was in every circumstance, and things he said, things he did.
Cool.
But it wasn't.
It
didn't exist during his lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, and that makes sense why I'd have that. There would have been that confusion with that because they're from him, but not from him, so to speak. Like they're like they're conceptually similar to the Gospels in that sense. They're accounts from other people of Muhammad.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's really cool. All right. Well, I really appreciate it. I don't know what I really appreciate it. We'll call it here. I definitely want to link to that stuff, and we're definitely going to do it again. This will be an ongoing thing if you'll have me.
Yeah, bro. It's my pleasure. If you want, you can take my my WhatsApp number, and if you want a reference to something particular, or if you want a quick answer on something, I can give you a quick answer. Or you might ask me a question I don't know the answer to. It'll be a cause, God willing, for me to go and further my knowledge and for me to learn something, and it should be mutually beneficial. So if you want me to be that person, you can ask these questions to. The honor is mine, and I see it as a duty and an obligation, because I believe that this religion is from God, and this religion is just a mercy to mankind, and it's such a flawless way of living. So any way in which I can talk about it or spread the knowledge of what I think is good and right, it's absolutely my honor to do it. You're such a respectful guy, really respectful guy. I like how you conduct yourself. I like your videos, and I like you have a thought, you go into your car, and then you just talk 20 minutes to your camera. I think it's unique. I think it's precious. So if I can be with you on this journey, and we can talk and we can share thoughts, and if you have questions, I can help you out with that. It's absolutely my pleasure.
Well, I'm going to try not to cry. That was extremely. That really meant a lot, man. For real. That meant a lot. On your point earlier, I'm very negatively wired, and the challenge of my lifetime has been getting rid of the negative mental traps, because I like it. I knew intellectually, be positive, but when you're programmed and conditioned to be as negative, extremely negative, it was a 10-year process for me to get that unraveled. Like, it was not an overnight thing at all. And so on that note, encouraging words mean a lot to me. I without being a drama queen, I haven't necessarily heard. I've heard a lot about my potential as a kid, and from my close loved ones now, I've heard a lot of good encouraging words over the last few years. But on this political thing, I don't know if it's, not to be arrogant, I don't know if it's an intellectual intimidation thing, or if it's just a I don't have very many people or whatever, but I know that there's not a lot of people that really comment on what I do or the things that I've mentioned in the videos or whatever. And it's just, I don't have many followers. It's not like I assume that's the primary thing, but my only point is, every encouraging word means a lot to me. So I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I'm happy that I know you, and yeah, I look forward to more of these discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. God bless you,
Take care,
sir.
my
Have a
brother.
good one.
Peace out. Take care, bro. See you later, man.
Okay.
Thanks for
See
having
you.
me. Yeah.
All righty. Well, that was nice. That was very nice. I'm gonna go through the thing here. My brother earlier said that Trump's mean tweets ruined my life. I thought that was, is this dude real? That's funny. Gadir Day. What is that? I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I'll look into that after. Live like Ali. Is that Muhammad Ali? Is that a reference to Muhammad Ali? This is a prophet. It's about households. I suggest you read it if you want to know the truth and insist to make it. PBUH. Okay. That's cool. That guy is from Scotland. I am from California. Fresno, California originally, living in Stockton, California right now. Yeah, I'm going to look into Gadir Day for sure. I am not Muslim. He is. I am not. I am. I grew up Christian, and I'm now Christian in my main conception of the world. I believe that the Christian commentaries on the best way to be as a human being are true in a divine sense. And obviously, if someone believes that, Jesus was a prophet, in some sense, that doesn't contradict it. But the idea that Jesus would be the ideal, ultimate, and final prophet and word of God, what was the term? Incarnate, in the real world, God manifested in the real world, not just a prophet. That's obviously a huge distinction. And I still am grounded in the position where I think that Jesus was the ultimate bringer of truth, because he was God. He was the only instance in which a perfect life was lived, because God came and chose to show us grace and mercy. Now, I want to learn as much as I possibly can, and I believe that all religions are an attempt to discover God, and they just do it to varying degrees of success. And I believe that the truth of how to live as a human being, and the truth of how to live as the truth to live ideally as a human being is eternal. So the truth was always there, and we're discovering it as time goes on. And it's about engaging in that process of ongoing discovery and exploration that makes the difference between sort of believing you have some sort of final, I know everything about what I need to know, versus the kind of constant ongoing exploration. So I'm interested, anyways, the point is I'm interested in learning as much as I can. That's the beginning and the end of it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this. I'm so grateful that Ray came on, and we're definitely going to connect more in the future, and we're definitely going to have more conversations like this, and we're probably going to work together at some point. And I didn't get to talk to him about that, but I have something in my back pocket entrepreneurially down the road that he in particular seems like he would be an asset in. So anyways, God bless you all. I love you all. Thank you all for coming here. And this has been another Uncommon Conversation. And I hope you enjoyed it.